Previously in part 1, I was sold by my father and forced to marry a monster prince to save my sister's happiness. I expected a nightmare, but on our wedding night, the cold-blooded tyrant wept, calling me by a secret name from 10 years ago. He had been waiting for me all along. But just as I opened my heart, a mysterious incense, white balsam, revealed a bone-chilling betrayal. My first love, the man I once adored, is plotting our destruction. Part 2. He said that before the Lantern Festival banquet that year, the palace suddenly discovered someone practicing curse magic. Consort Jin fell gravely ill. In the end, it was traced to a maid from the Empress's palace, accused of placing a curse. No matter how the Empress explained, the Emperor still flew into a rage. He confined her to her own palace. No one was allowed to visit. She wasn't even permitted to attend the banquet. Because of it, the crown prince also lost imperial favor. He nearly had his title stripped, with the third prince to be installed as master of the Eastern Palace instead. It should have been a day of family reunion. Instead, mother and son were torn apart. So the crown prince quietly left the banquet and disguised himself as a eunuch from the imperial kitchens, trying to seize a chance to see the empress. Alexander was carrying a food box down a side path when he ran into several other eunuchs. They accused him of stealing dishes from the palace banquet. They didn't just snatch the food, they nearly dragged him off to the chief eunuch in charge of attending the emperor. In the scuffle, I happened to come upon them and pulled him out. I used my status as the general's daughter to frighten those eunuchs off. He said he was just a low-ranking kitchen eunuch. I said I was the Jian family's second young lady. He thanked me. I told him that if he kept being meek and letting people push him around, then he ought to clench his fists and hit back. That was what father taught my older sister and me. Afterward, he sent people to ask about me. He saw me a few times after that, always from a distance. I lived quietly in the inner residence of the Jian estate. He walked on thin ice at court. Those brief, stolen moments when our eyes met, just knowing I was safe, were the only way he dared to show what he felt. Back then, I thought I'd only spoken up out of anger because I'd stumbled upon bullies picking on the weak. I never imagined that the one keeping his head down in the shadows, calling himself Alex, was the crown prince. That day, everything in my food box was taken. You gave me some pastries to put inside. Those pastries were ones I'd secretly saved. I'd meant to take them back for my older sister, but he looked so pitiful. If he failed his errand, he'd likely be punished, so I gave him more than half. So on our wedding day, when you wrapped pastries in a handkerchief and handed them to me, you were already hinting at it, more or less, and the peanuts and red dates inside were for the usual blessing. May you have children soon. Why didn't you just tell me? I always felt you still had James Liu in your heart, as I didn't want to compete with him after we married, so I kept quiet about the past. And what happened that night? It was too embarrassing. I really had kept James Liu in my heart for many years, but after I saw him and my older sister pledge themselves to each other, and after I married the crown prince, that feeling would never return. It shouldn't. The crown prince's eyes were clear and bright, like morning stars. My ears suddenly grew hot. I said I was afraid I'd let down his sincerity. He asked whether I believed his sincerity was real. I've thought maybe you treat me well, because I'm a daughter of the Jian family. But there's always another voice in me that says you wouldn't lie to me. I believed the pastries he pressed into my hand on our wedding night were real. I believed the little name he gave me was real. In this world, father wanted me to uphold the family's honor. Mother wanted me to be gentle and well-mannered. My older sister thought I never truly grew up, that I'd always be the little sister trailing after her. Only Alexander Han wanted me to be free, to be happy. I grew up in the palace. I've received flattery, and I've also been looked down on. I've been steeped in power and schemes for years. Every bit of sincerity I offer is, to some degree, weighed against gains and losses. But Yuna, what I offer you is the truest part of me. Even in an ordinary household, people still fight and worry, let alone in a noble family, let alone the royal palace. At least I had my older sister to shield me. But he had no one. He had to claw his way to everything himself, with imperial power hanging overhead like a blade that could fall at any moment. How many people in this world can truly give 10 parts of sincerity? He said the thing I feared would never happen. He also said that no matter what changes came later, I must not lose my nerve. I agreed. I trusted him. And I trusted even more that Father would protect my older sister and wouldn't gamble the entire John family lightly. With his warning in advance, when I later saw Olivia Pay going in and out of the Crown Prince's study again and again, I wasn't very surprised. Minister Pay was a pillar of the court. People naturally leaned on him. The Crown Prince was being hemmed in from every side, so relying on the Pay clan was only normal. I often ran into Olivia Pay in the garden. Her visits to the study had become routine. When we met, she only nodded, and we each went our separate ways. Soon, the Crown Prince's confinement ended. The weather slid into late autumn, the kind of chill that seeps into your bones. James Liu went back and forth for disaster relief and earned merit. He became a favorite before the emperor. The Jiang family's reputation rose with him. I watched for many days. Finally, after word spread through the capital that James Liu and the third prince got along so well they talked through the night, rumors began even in the Crown Prince's residence that I had fallen out of favor. Everyone knew I was only the Jiang family's second young lady, married off to placate the Crown Prince. An unloved wife in name only. Everyone believed the Crown Prince favored me only out of respect for Father. Now my older sister's husband was drawing closer and closer to the third prince. The Crown Prince's position was growing more precarious. Of course, I wouldn't be favored anymore. Just as the rumors reached a fever pitch, the Crown Prince quietly slipped into my room in the dead of night. His eyes were rimmed red, like a wounded cub. Saying I had fallen out of favor wasn't entirely false. The Crown Prince truly hadn't come to my courtyard for days. And now, when I saw him again, it was in the deep stillness of night, when I was nearly asleep. I slipped on my outer robe and lit the lamp again. In the flickering candlelight, the Crown Prince squeezed his eyes shut. When he opened them, the earlier loss of control was gone. "Did something happen?" I asked, pulling my robe tighter. "Have you heard the recent rumors about James Liu?" I nodded. My older sister had even sent someone 2 days ago with bolts of silk, saying they were for making me new clothes. Tucked among them, I found a letter from her. She asked how I'd been lately. Her words were full of apology and uncertainty. Even she had taken the rumors to heart. In the capital, there was probably no one left who didn't know. "Father issued an edict today," he said. "He's transferring James Liu to the Ministry of Personnel." The Ministry of Personnel? My voice rose despite myself. In the rumors, anyone with eyes could see it. The third prince had joined hands with James Liu. With Minister Pei's help, they'd played the Crown Prince, made him elevate James Liu, all to benefit the third prince. In the end, the Crown Prince had been outmaneuvered. Even if James Liu had merit and was in high favor, he still shouldn't have been moved straight into an important post at the Ministry of Personnel. Father is paving the way for William Han. I used to think Father was just a little biased, that he simply didn't care for me. I never imagined that after all these years, in his heart, I'm nothing but a whetstone to sharpen William Han. William Han was the third prince. If you're a whetstone, then once the blade is sharp enough, the stone is no longer needed. Hearing him say it aloud, with that bitter self-mockery, cut straight through me. Father and son at odds. Brothers turned against each other. And the last thing he said to me was, "Yuna, I need you to help me." James Liu was rising fast. The third prince's influence was growing by the day. News from the palace said the emperor's health was worsening. He coughed constantly, and he even cancelled court for 2 days. After James Liu entered the Ministry of Personnel, the Crown Prince leaned even more heavily on the Pei clan. In the residence, people gradually began to spread word that the Crown Prince would soon take Olivia Pei as a consort. Once people start talking, gossip is everywhere. So even when I sat quietly in the garden, I could still hear maids whispering. I'd managed the household for so long. It was the first time I'd caught people gossiping so brazenly. So I chose a spot out of the sun, had the 2 maids pinned down, and ordered 50 slaps each, right in front of me. With each sharp crack, tears burst from the maids' eyes. After another slap, Olivia Pei passed through the garden, as she always did. With a half smile, she told me to show mercy when I could. I gave her a cold look. Since when does a woman with no title get to meddle when I punish my servants? No matter how bad things were, I'd still been carried in through the front gate in a bridal sedan. That was Olivia Pay's sore spot, and I stepped on it in front of everyone. After that, the two of us forgot all about propriety. We argued, then shoved each other right there in the garden. She was the daughter of a refined civil official. Of course, she couldn't match someone raised in the general's residence. In the struggle, I used too much strength and, without meaning to, shoved her straight into the lotus pond. That afternoon, she came down with a fever, and I was scolded harshly by the crown prince. He even shoved me to the ground right in front of Olivia Pay. That was when I fell out with the crown prince, too. Furious, he sneered, "Fine." He said I was so capable turning the crown prince's residence upside down that I might as well go back to the Jiang family. Of course I had to go. I cried until I could barely breathe, screaming that he'd only married me for father's power. Then I turned and fled Olivia Pay's courtyard in tears. Before long, word would grow wings and fly across the capital. They'd say that after losing favor, I became jealous and threw the crown prince's household into chaos until he grew to dislike me. It might even reach the palace and become yet another weapon to use against him. If the crown prince wanted me gone, then I would go. Using the excuse that mother was ill and I needed to return to care for her, I went back to the Jian estate. When mother saw me, she was furious. She said I'd been far too careless, that I was bringing trouble to father. Father, on the other hand, said little. His face stayed cold. He only met my eyes and told me to stay for now. The Jiang family's only tie to the crown prince snapped, just like that. Now the crown prince truly could only rely on the Pei clan. My older sister came back to see me. She said she hadn't spoken to James Liu for many days. She thought she'd married the right man. She never expected she'd push the Jiang family toward the third prince and drag me down with her. I held her hand and told her to wait a little longer. She asked what we were waiting for. I said, when winter comes, foxes always come out early to hunt. After that fight with James Liu, my older sister also returned to the general's residence. She planned to stay for a while. I knew she was unhappy, so I packed up and moved into her courtyard to keep her company. Father came back and said that in recent morning court sessions, they'd begun arguing over whether the year-end rites should be performed by one of the princes in the emperor's place, since he still hadn't fully recovered. By every rule, it should have been the crown prince. But someone submitted a memorial claiming the crown prince had made mistake after mistake in recent months. The year-end rites, it argued, should be handled by the worthy and capable. Between the lines, it was the same message. The crown prince wasn't fit, and the third prince should do it. Both sides fought over it for 2 or 3 days. Then in the end, Minister Pei stepped forward and, with ringing certainty, recommended the third prince William Han, a minister of the 6 ministries, close to the crown prince for years. His daughter still living in the crown prince's residence, yet he openly stood with the third prince. Only after I, the consort linking the crown prince and the Jiang family, had broken with the crown prince did the fox dare poke its head out of its den and bare its wolfish ambition. With Minister Pei's impassioned speech, the year-end rites were ultimately assigned to the third prince. In court, and among the people, rumors spread everywhere that the emperor favored the third prince and planned to depose the crown prince. The dispute spilled into Imperial Hall, where they argued right in front of the emperor, over legitimate birth versus concubinage, over seniority and order. Imperial Hall descended into chaos. The emperor, who had only just begun to improve, was so enraged that he toppled headfirst onto the stone steps and fainted on the spot. After he was carried back to his sleeping palace, he never woke again. Panic swept the court. Father stopped going to court for several days in a row. At night, when my older sister and I played chess, we often heard a pipa. Mother was the one playing. Mother used to be a pipa performer. The piece she played best was Moon Over the Pass. Back when Father went to war, she would often sit alone in the courtyard and play it. I'd always felt that deep down, Mother truly loved Father. She just refused to say it. Since my older sister and I married out, Father and Mother spent more time together. There was a quiet companionship between them. When mother played, father sat nearby and listened. Today the pipa notes grated against my ears. My hand shook, and I placed a piece wrong. I lost the game outright. Auntie is playing ambush from 10 sides. Today, it sounds eerie. Did it scare you? I forced a smile, not knowing how to answer. Emmy, are you worried about the crown prince? My older sister frowned. Worry clung to her plain, clean face and wouldn't lift. I knew she had fought with James Liu, but she still cared for him. When she said I was worried about the crown prince, she was speaking of herself too. Worried about James Liu. If the emperor truly never woke, and the crown prince and the third prince fought like two tigers, then no matter who lost, she and I, one of us, would be dragged under. Don't overthink it, I said. You've lost weight lately. I was only startled today when I saw the Prince of Pingyang enter the capital. A troop of cavalry galloped through the streets at full speed. The Prince of Pingyang held Ye City as his fief. Ye City had 30,000 troops. Unless summoned by the emperor, he ordinarily wouldn't return to the capital. This time, with the emperor gravely ill, he came charging back with cavalry, flaunting it down the main avenue. Who knew who he meant to intimidate? For days, the palace made no move. I stayed at the Jiang estate for quite a while. Then I suddenly heard the emperor had been poisoned by a villain. The empress struck the inner palace with a ruthless hand. In Consort Jin's palace, they found poison. On the spot, more than 20 palace servants were strangled to death. The speed and force were like the time the palace investigated sorcery, when the empress was punished. The palace filled with wailing. Consort Jin screamed herself hoarse, accusing the empress of framing her, demanding the emperor judge the matter. But the emperor lay unconscious. The palace gates were shut tight. Even the third prince couldn't enter. At the critical moment, Consort Jin suddenly produced a wooden box. She said it contained an edict the emperor had left her. Whoever dared touch her would be defying the emperor. Before everyone, the empress took out the edict. It bore the emperor's jade seal. Clear as day, it named the crown prince as regent. From that day on, the empress imprisoned Consort Jin in her sleeping hall for madness. No matter how she cried and screamed, it did nothing. Later, Consort Jin made an even greater scene, shouting that the empress had altered the edict and murdered the emperor, her husband. The empress then withdrew everyone from that entire hall and forbade all visits. No one dares believe the words of a madwoman. The edict was announced to the world. The crown prince's regency was now settled. Father had mother play ambush from 10 sides again, meaning that tomorrow he would enter the palace. With that music in the air, my older sister told me James Liu was sick. He couldn't even get out of bed. The doctor said it was an illness he'd taken on while controlling the floods in Jubei. My older sister seemed to want to go back to care for him. Yet she hesitated, torn. I made an excuse to keep her here. After she returned to her room to sleep, I stood in the courtyard for a long time. Then I heard 2 bird calls. A masked figure in black leapt down from the roof and landed lightly before me. He dropped to one knee and held out a letter. I opened it. Inside were property deeds, banknotes, and a note in the crown prince's own hand. He wrote that tomorrow would be dangerous. He couldn't set his mind at ease, so he'd prepared a carriage and horses outside the city. I could leave first. If he succeeded, he would come for me. If he failed, I should change my name and live quietly. What he left me would keep me safe for life. He had still left me a way out. I didn't know whether this was a test, an act of mercy, or both. Looking at the words my wife Yuna on the page, I ultimately did not leave. I told the masked man still waiting beside me to report back to the crown prince. Since we were husband and wife, whether he won or lost, I would be with him. I sat in the courtyard all night. The candle in my older sister's room stayed lit all night too. The next day, father didn't hurry to morning court. Before he left, my older sister and I saw he'd put on his armor. He looked imposing, unwavering. "Father," my older sister called, confusion in her voice. I held her hand and watched him turn. His gaze moved between us, then he tightened his grip on the hilt of his sword. "You two stay home. With me here, I'll protect both of your husbands." He left without hesitation. Once he was gone, the John Estate's gates were shut tight, sealing us off from the outside world. "Emmy, what did father mean?" my older sister asked. She squeezed my palm as if she couldn't make sense of it. Emma, I paused, then asked, if James Lu died, would you go on living? It was like lightning struck her. She stared at me for a long time, then slowly shook her head. I wouldn't. Emma, the fight I had with the Crown Prince and my return home were just for show. The Crown Prince and I staged it for Olivia Pay to see. We wanted to force that old fox, Minister Pay, to show himself, and to make the third prince think the Zhang family had nothing to do with the Crown Prince anymore. So father is entering the palace to help the Crown Prince? Yes, father appears neutral, but he's been in contact with the Crown Prince for a long time. Back then, the third prince had the Prince of Pingyang. The Crown Prince had secretly come to our door several times. After many twists and turns, he finally won father over. Then what about James Lu? My older sister stared into my eyes, panic flooding her face. I lowered my lashes and said evenly, he has always been the Crown Prince's man. The news that he was close with the third prince was also planted by the Crown Prince. James Lu had known the Crown Prince earlier than I'd ever imagined. Before he moved to the capital and displayed his talent, the Crown Prince had already come to know him indirectly when he sent people to investigate me. They shared the same ambition. Both burned to accomplish something. For the Crown Prince's cause, once James Lu gained some fame in the capital, he pretended to draw close to the third prince, who was at the height of his power. In the Crown Prince's words, the third prince had planted several people on his side. Sending one James Lu the other way was hardly a loss. James Lu and my older sister pledged themselves to each other. After he passed the imperial examination, he came to propose. Many tried to ruin the match because they coveted father's power. It was thanks to the third prince's maneuvering that James Lu and my older sister finally married. The third prince believed that by marrying my older sister, James Lu had drawn the Jiang estate to his side. To keep him from suspecting anything, the Crown Prince hurried to the Jiang estate as well and asked to marry the legitimate daughter. He said he wanted the legitimate daughter, but it was only another layer of planning. He married me instead. That way he could marry me openly without rousing suspicion from the third prince's camp. James Lu and my older sister could marry at last. The Jiang family could remain seemingly neutral. 1 move, 4 games. This was the Crown Prince's real calculation. Even the official who went to Jibei for flood relief was someone the third prince had planted at the Crown Prince's side. When that official's younger brother was exposed in a land grab case outside the capital and people died, the Crown Prince seized the chance to pull out that hidden thorn. He then lay low in his residence, appearing defeated. With Minister Pei's help, he pushed James Lu up. On the surface, the Crown Prince stumbled again and again. In truth, the wedding clothes made for another still ended up on the Crown Prince. He had originally planned to dismantle the third prince's power step by step and take the throne without bloodshed. So when James Lu basked in fame, the two agreed to spread the rumor that James Lu was close with the third prince. They did it to let word reach the palace and to let the emperor see that the third prince had spent years placing obstacles in his path. If the emperor was wise, he would begin to balance the court. But the Crown Prince didn't expect the emperor to treat him as nothing more than a whetstone for his beloved son. Not only did he refuse to balance anything, he even moved James Lu into the Ministry of Personnel. And the empress, deep in the palace, discovered an edict in the emperor's own handwriting. It said that after his death, the throne would pass to the third prince. So much for a legitimate crown prince, so much for the empress. In the end, neither could compare to the emperor's favoritism. The night the crown prince slipped into my room, he had already cast aside all restraint. What remained were only killing moves. I hid the palace matters and told my older sister only part of what I knew. She sat on a stone bench in the courtyard for a long time, dazed. Then she asked if I knew why father had carried a blade into the palace today. Today is the crown prince's first day as regent. The third prince won't hand over the throne so easily. The Prince of Pingyang has returned to the capital with several thousand Ye City troops. He means to bathe Imperial Hall in blood today. Father went in to help the crown prince quell the chaos. Several thousand Ye City troops. My older sister sprang to her feet, her voice turning frantic. The Ye City troops are fierce. Father only has a few thousand men. How can he fight them? She grabbed my arms with both hands. Her voice broke with tears, and my own heart tightened. It should have been a perfect trap. But the Prince of Pingyan came back. In the end, the third prince didn't stake everything on Father. The crown prince held the imperial seal and served as regent in Imperial Hall. The third prince and the Prince of Pingyan held their tokens and led troops into the palace. They trapped the crown prince and the entire court within the inner grounds. When Father entered the palace, his plan was to stall for time and gamble on a single strike with the crown prince. Hit the third prince before he could react. But my older sister was right. Against the Yi City troops, the crown prince and Father didn't have good odds. I dragged a chair into the middle of the courtyard and sat. The capital seemed unusually quiet today. The clash of weapons inside the palace couldn't be heard. In the distance, I could only see layered rooftops and upturned eaves. Not until the sun stood overhead did I hear hoofbeats like thunder, perfectly in step, drawing closer and closer. I rose and told the gatekeeper to open the door. Outside stood a squad of guards surrounding the Jiang estate. The rest were racing toward the palace. Someone swung down from his horse and stopped before me. It was James Liu. "How is Sophie? Is she all right?" James Liu was coated in dust. He must have pretended to be ill, then ridden all night with the military seal, without stopping, to mobilize troops and return to the capital. "Emma is in the back courtyard with Mother. Everything in the Jiang estate is fine." We exchanged only a few hurried words before he mounted again and charged toward the palace to fight. The gates shut once more. Before long, chaos broke out outside, hoofbeat shouts, then mostly a few heavy thuds and silence. I stayed seated in the courtyard. Sweat dampened my temples. When the wind rose, a chill ran clean through me. Not until the sun sank westward did heavy knocking suddenly shake the gate. When it opened, Father stood there, holding a heavy blade. He strode in. His armor was spattered with blood. In that instant, all the strength left me. I tried to stand, but my legs buckled and I nearly fell to my knees. "Father?" I clutched his arm as he steadied me, searching him over again and again until I was sure the blood on him belonged to others. Father had returned unharmed. He also said my husband and my older sister's husband were unharmed as well, and were now in the palace, stabilizing the situation. "Emma and Mother are in the back courtyard," I said. "Father, go see them." I pointed toward the rear. After Father left, I forced myself out through the front gate to see what had become of the long street. Corpses, broken blades, pools of blood. And yet the strongest stench of slaughter drifted from the direction of the palace, rolling down the street in waves. My stomach lurched, and I nearly vomited. That night, James Liu came too. A scar cut across his face, not big, not small. My older sister cried until she ached, pounding his chest even as she scolded him in the same breath. I couldn't stay with them, so I went to the Jiang estate's front gate. Lanterns had been hung there. When the wind blew, they swayed at crooked angles. "Yuna," I heard someone call my name. When I turned, I saw the crown prince. I looked at him. He'd changed into clean, new robes. He was whole, untouched. "Yuna, I won." He had won. "Yuna, you don't have to be afraid anymore." I wasn't. He lifted a hand and beckoned. My nose burned. I ran to him and buried my face in his chest, clutching his robe with both hands. I had been truly afraid. From the moment he told me his plan, when the Prince of Pingyan entered the capital, when James Liu pretended to be ill, when Father left the residence, I began to feel afraid. Every moment of every day, I was so scared, I thought I would go mad. The crown prince wrapped one arm around my waist. With his other hand, he kept patting my back. My useless tears soaked into his robe. When I turned my face away, the fabric on his chest had darkened in 2 patches. He wiped my tears away. Then, all of a sudden, he told me he was afraid too. "What are you afraid of?" I blinked, forcing the tears back. "That I finally managed to marry you, and then ruin your whole life." The crown prince lifted his hand. The attendants behind him brought forward several scrolls. I opened the top one and realized it was the painting of plum blossoms and snow from that day. But at some point, a silhouette had been added. The figure wore a cloak and had twin looped buns. She looked as if she were hurrying forward. "This is me?" I held the scroll and looked at the crown prince. "Yes." I brought it back from the Crown Prince's residence. It was our first meeting. I pointed you the way. Back then, when I watched you walk away, I thought how wonderful it would be if one day I could marry you. I flipped through the other scrolls. They were all painted by him. Not many, but every one of them was me. That night, I looked at the paintings and talked with the Crown Prince for a long time. He told me that in those early days, everyone looked down on him. They all rushed to curry favor with Consort Jin and the third prince. Even he felt he couldn't measure up to William Han. He also told me that the pastries from that night had been taken to the Empress, and in the end, she ate every last bite. I clearly hadn't been drinking, yet I felt a little drunk. I couldn't remember much after that. I only remembered that when the red curtains hung low, he called me Yuna. I wrapped my arms around his waist and softly called his name again and again. For several days after the palace coup, because things outside were still unstable and the palace was still being cleared out, my sister and I continued to live at the Jian residence. Many were executed outside Meridian Gate. The stench of blood lingered for days. The Pei clan was among them. The entire Pei family was gone, leaving only Olivia Pei, still under house arrest in the Crown Prince's residence. Every gate in the city was shut. Not even a fly could get out. Father said that during the coup, William Han had been struck with a palm and maimed by father. Later, in the chaos, someone protected him and helped him flee the palace. Now William Han's whereabouts were unknown, so the gates had been closed. Soldiers were searching house to house. In a few days, they should catch him. With remnants still on the run, the Jian residence tightened its guard as well. My sister and I were bored every day, so we begged Mother to teach us both the pipa. The things girls were supposed to learn, my sister and I had started young, but the two things we never managed were music and dance, especially dance. My sister's body was too weak. She couldn't learn it. As for me, I simply couldn't learn it no matter how hard I tried. Later, Father couldn't stand watching anymore. He hired several instructors to teach my sister and me martial skills so we could strengthen our bodies. My sister still remained frail, but I was different. After falling ill once at 11, I never got sick again. With the instructors, I managed to pick up some basic fighting skills. After 2 days of learning the pipa, guards from the Crown Prince's residence suddenly came to the Jian residence. They told me Olivia Pei had taken poison, and before she died, she wanted to see me. At the words, "taken poison," everyone sucked in a sharp breath. "Where did she get poison?" I demanded, frowning at the messenger. It was rat poison from Pristine Court. By the time we got there, she'd already vomited blood several times. The physician says she's at the end. I set the pipa down. Olivia Pai's delicate, beautiful face flashed through my mind and my breathing went unsteady. "Go see her," Mother said as she put the pipa away. "Things aren't peaceful outside. Take more guards with you. And the Crown Prince's residence has guards too. She won't dare play tricks." The messenger said the physician had already given Olivia Pei 2 doses of harsh medicine. She was hanging on by a thread, waiting for me to return. When I arrived at Pristine Court, Olivia Pei was wearing a bright red wedding dress, sitting in her room as she waited for me. The dress was embroidered with red gold peonies. The red was blazing like a burst of flame. She had powder on and lipstick too, but it couldn't hide the ashen gray of her complexion. "You wanted to see me?" I had the maid stop at the door and stepped inside alone. "Do I look good in this wedding dress?" Olivia Pei lifted her chin and drew her lips into a composed smile. "You look good." Olivia Pei was the only beauty I had ever seen who could compare to my sister. Sometimes, she even surpassed her. So even now, she was still captivating. I embroidered this dress myself. I used to think I would wear it when I married Alexander Han. But before I could finish it, you married into the residence. Olivia Pei's gaze fell on my face like 2 blades. "But I don't care about you. I know he married you for the Jiang family's power. He pampers you only for show. You're just a secondary consort, a toy. I'm different. One day, when he ascends the throne, I'll be the woman standing at his side as he looks down on the world. But your surname is Pei. You're a daughter of the Pei family." A daughter of Minister Pei, who had long since defected to the third prince. At the words "the Pei family," Olivia Pei suddenly smiled even more brilliantly. That year, I begged my father to send me into the crown prince's residence. Before I went in, my father and brothers told me I had to serve the crown prince with all my heart. I truly believed the Pei clan and the crown prince were one body. I thought if I walked with him to supreme power, one day he would finally see me. You didn't know the Pei family had already pledged themselves to the third prince? I was surprised. All this time, I had assumed Olivia Pei was also a spy sent by Minister Pei. Hearing my question, Olivia Pei let out a bleak laugh. She laughed until she couldn't hold back her coughing, and only then did she stop. Do you know what's easiest to use in this world? A sincere heart. My father and brothers used my sincerity toward Alexander Han. Alexander Han used my sincerity toward him. From the moment I begged my father to send me into the crown prince's residence, I became a chess piece of the Pei clan. Olivia Pei pointed at her chest. When the words chess piece left her mouth, tears were already streaming down her face. I listened quietly, yet my chest felt heavy, airless. Olivia Pei went on. When I was 16, I first saw Alexander Han at a poetry gathering. He wrote a lyric. From then on, I loved him with all my heart. I knew my father was loyal to him. I also knew how difficult his situation was, so I fought desperately to get to his side. Before you married him, he was spirited and shining. But after you came, everything changed. Suddenly, Olivia Pei raised her voice. She braced herself against the table and stood up. She even swept her sleeve across the tea set and knocked it to the ground. A cup shattered at my feet, shards flying. After you married in, he lost at every turn and was constrained at every turn. I thought you were a jinx the Jiang family sent. One hand on the table, she pointed at me with the other. Her voice broke, worse than the cup. But you tricked me, all of you. You all knew the truth, only I didn't. Through her sobbing, I saw dark red blood well at the corner of her mouth. Her face looked even worse. Everyone was a chess piece. Yet everyone had once moved pieces on the board. Except her. She had never seen the board clearly. Emma Jiang, what did I lose to you? Family background? Talent? Beauty? What made him never truly treat me with sincerity? Family background and time. My father choosing the crown prince is one reason, and under Olivia Pei's demanding stare, I paused, then said, when I met him, he wasn't like he is now. Olivia Pei fell silent. She wiped away her tears, then wiped the blood at her lip. The smear along her cheek looked like a single plum petal fallen on snow, about to be buried at any moment. My heartbeat suddenly stalled. With the crown prince's temperament, the Pei family's crimes wouldn't have implicated you. If he doesn't implicate me, does that mean I can kneel under my enemy's feet? Live on by clinging to a sliver of his pity? Olivia Pei asked. If it were you, could you do it? I couldn't, and someone as proud as Olivia Pei couldn't either. I know you must find it strange. Since I meant to die anyway, why did I wait until today to take poison? Olivia Pei stumbled toward me, step by step. Her voice was gentle, soft. Because you used me. If I'm going to die, of course I'll use you back once. I met her eyes and a surge of panic rose in me. I forced myself to stay calm. What do you mean? William Han has been missing for so long. Why do you think they searched the whole city and still couldn't find him? You hid him in the crown prince's residence? No need to be so nervous. He isn't there now. But think. The general's residence guards followed you to the crown prince's residence. If William Han wants to take a hostage out of the city, if he wants revenge for his severed hand, who should he go after? Olivia Pei spoke softly, as if every word were poisoned. My sister. It was my sister. My eyes went wide. Before Olivia Pei could finish, I shoved her aside and ran out. Maids and guards surged after me in a rushing wave. Every footstep pounded straight into my heart. I ran toward the Jian residence without any sense of direction. On the steps, I missed my footing and fell hard. Hairpins scattered from my head. I screamed at the guards to hurry, then scrambled up myself. I cut the reins on the carriage and rode the horse back at full speed. I arrived almost at the same time as the patrol soldiers. The Jian residence was surrounded. Cries from inside spilled over the walls, and I slid straight off the horse. Someone protected me as we forced our way inside. There were so many bodies in the courtyard, mostly familiar household servants. I grabbed someone and asked if William Han had come. He nodded, shaking with terror. William Hahn had appeared out of nowhere, leading his remnants into the rear courtyard. Now he was trapped. I went with them to the back. There were even more corpses there. I saw William Hahn, missing one hand, and his few remaining followers surrounded in the rear courtyard. With one order, the soldiers beside me would rush in and chop him to pulp. But he was holding my sister. He pinned her in front of him. A blood-smeared blade was pressed to her throat, keeping her from moving at all. On the stone steps behind him, I saw a body. A knife was embedded in its chest, blood still seeping out in a steady stream. "Mother." I opened my mouth. 2 words came out, barely even words. I shoved aside the people in front of me and tried to lunge forward like a madwoman, but I couldn't cry. Not at all. That was my mother. My mother who hadn't yet taught me the pipa. My sister was crying too. She clenched her teeth and kept telling me not to come closer. Someone grabbed me, and I went even more frantic, roaring for them to let go. In the end, Father and James Lou arrived first. Father clamped a hand on my shoulder and dragged me back. I turned and saw his face, grief held down by sheer force. I sank to one knee, pointed toward Mother, and tried to say something, but only broken sounds came out. Not until Father called me Emmy did I finally burst into tears. Mother is still there. I need to go to her. Father, let me go." Father kept me behind him. I watched as a thin line of blood appeared on my sister's neck. James Lou gripped his knife so hard he looked ready to tear William Hahn apart. William Hahn demanded fast horses, banknotes, his birth mother consort gin, and that Father open the city gates and send him out. Otherwise, he would kill my sister. Father didn't speak for a long time. I couldn't see his expression, but I could see his hand shaking faintly. On one side was the daughter he loved most. On the other was the enemy who could never be forgiven. My head throbbed. Everything spun. "I'll do it." I wiped my tears and forced my sobs down. I made myself stand and step beside Father. Then I called to William Hahn. "I'll trade places with my sister." William Hahn's eyes were dark and vicious. He didn't seem moved. "I'm the Crown Prince's secondary consort. From the start, the one the Crown Prince liked was me. The one who worked with him was me. If you take my sister, you can only threaten my father. But if you take me, you can threaten the Crown Prince." I kept my voice as steady as I could. William Hahn's hand wavered. I knew he was tempted. After a long standoff, he told me to come over. I obeyed, walking forward step by step. "No," my sister cried, trying to stop me. The moment I took my first step, Father seized my hand. His palm was rough with thick calluses, steady enough to break my heart. My father couldn't bring himself to trade one daughter's life for another's. The instant he grabbed my hand, Father and I met each other's eyes. His face shifted. "I've already lost Mother. I can't lose my sister too." Hidden by my wide sleeve, I spoke dully while tracing a single character on Father's wrist with my finger. Then I tore my hand free. When I drew close to William Hahn, I could almost see the bloodlust and madness in his eyes. His arm had been bandaged, but the limb without a left hand looked especially horrifying. My sister watched me come closer, choking on sobs. Then I grabbed her and shoved her toward James Lou. The moment James Lou pulled her into his arms, William Hahn locked me under his arm. The cold blade pressed to my neck. He put a little force into it, and pain flared through my throat. Warm beads of blood seeped along my skin and soaked into my clothes. Father sent people to prepare horses and report to the Crown Prince in the palace. William Hahn held me hostage and moved step by step with his subordinates, surrounded the whole way. From the Jiang residence to the Long Street, from the Long Street to the city gate. Before the Crown Prince's order arrived, no one dared open the gate. So the two sides stayed locked in a standoff. William Hahn's breathing thundered in my ear. The arm around me tightened more and more. "Are you afraid?" I tried to lean back, but I couldn't ignore the pain at my neck. "Shut up." The blade pressed harder. William Hahn's breathing was heavy, his body rigid as stone. The third prince who grew up in silk and privilege. One defeat, and now he's a rebel. He's been hiding for so long, and now he's about to become an exile, never knowing peace. Besides fear, you must feel unwilling too. I said, "Shut up!" William Hahn ground out the words. Even the hand holding the knife trembled. "Say one more word and I'll butcher you right now." "You won't kill me." I couldn't tell if the dampness soaking my clothes was sweat or blood. Under everyone's gaze, I kept my face calm and spoke softly. If you kill me now, you won't get away. You still need me as a hostage to get out. You still need me to trade for Consort Jin. Even if you mean to kill me, you'll drag me with you. You'll take my life once we're somewhere with no people. A blood feud like this, whether William Han held me or my sister once he escaped, he would never let the hostage live. William Han didn't answer. I couldn't see his expression. I could only feel his grip on the knife growing less steady, especially when I mentioned Consort Jin. In the gaps between his breaths, my hand clenched tighter and tighter in my sleeve. Then, at the crucial moment, the Crown Prince arrived. Before the towering city gate through the crowd, I saw the Crown Prince galloping in. As he drew nearer, William Han seemed to come fully awake. I stopped what I was about to do. The Crown Prince's eyes were red. He rushed to the front, even ahead of my father. He shouted for William Han to let me go. William Han seemed to relish the way he had made the Crown Prince lose control. The bloodied blade nearly cut into my throat. I couldn't help sucking in a sharp breath. William Han, if you dare hurt her, I'll hunt you to the ends of the earth and tear you to pieces. The Crown Prince flung his sleeve, his face twisted. Where is my mother? If you want her alive, open the gate, prepare fast horses, use my mother to trade. As he shouted, a carriage was brought over. The Crown Prince said Consort Jin was inside. The curtain lifted a little, and you could vaguely see a woman sitting there. But William Han didn't accept it. He insisted the gate be opened first. At the Crown Prince's command, the city gate rumbled open. William Han dragged me backward. That short stretch of road felt endlessly long. The fast horses William Han demanded were brought out. They stopped opposite, along with the carriage holding the so-called Consort Jin. I've given you everything, the Crown Prince said, reaching a hand toward me. Let her go. Have my mother get down. Let her walk over by herself. Another standoff. The woman in the carriage was helped down. She looked haggard, yet traces of her former grace remained. The Crown Prince once said Consort Jin had been the most favored. The Emperor wouldn't even let her see a single drop of blood. And now, the first time I saw her, it was like this. This was the woman the Emperor had pampered for a lifetime, loved for a lifetime, and for whose son he had been willing to hand over the realm. Mother! William Han cried out. Consort Jin's eyes filled with tears. Both sides held hostages. Neither would release first. Consort Jin sobbed and screamed for William Han to leave on his own. But William Han only wanted to take her with him. Someone held Consort Jin by the arms as she struggled. In full view of everyone, Consort Jin suddenly shouted, "William, my son!" Then she threw herself onto the blade and died on the spot. Blood sprayed from the wound and splattered the ground. For no reason, it made me think of my own mother, lying silent on the steps. Cold swept through my hands and feet. In my ears was William Han's heart-rending scream. No one had expected this. With her own life, Consort Jin cut off all of William Han's worries. The fast horses were finally given to him. Someone hurriedly covered Consort Jin's body. But William Han didn't mount a horse and leave. He seemed to have gone mad. Honorable Crown Prince, my good second brother, you really like this woman, don't you? William Han cried and laughed, taunting like a madman. Then draw your blade and ruin your right palm. I'll spare her for now. If you don't dare, I'll kill her this instant. The raw pain in my flesh seemed numb now. Even my ears felt numb. The Crown Prince was always clear-headed. I understood that a hostage almost never survives. My sister understood. Father understood too. He couldn't possibly not understand. But after only a brief pause, he reached back and drew Father's sword. He held it in his left hand, raised his right hand, and pressed the cold steel to his wrist before Father could stop him. All around us, people shouted, "Crown Prince," begging him to think again. He asked only one question. "Do you swear?" William Han couldn't possibly keep such a promise. I wanted to shake my head, but I couldn't move. As the Crown Prince shifted, William Han's arm wavered. The blade drifted a fraction away from my neck. I saw a thin line of blood appear beneath the sword at the Crown Prince's wrist, just like my own throat. I watched. William Han watched too. A strange laugh rattled in William Han's throat, rusted and harsh. His arm shook with it. I looked at Father. The moment our eyes met, I suddenly gripped the gold hairpin in my hand and drove it hard into William Han's thigh. It was the hairpin that had fallen to the ground when I stumbled at the Crown Prince's residence. It was a birthday gift my mother had given me. Now most of it was buried in William Hand's leg. He recoiled in pain. I shoved away his stiff arm, but he seized my shoulder again. With the little fighting skill I had, I grappled with him. "Father!" I shouted. In that split second, an arrow carrying overwhelming force tore through the air. It grazed my cheek and struck William Hahn straight in the head. At the same time, a violent pain exploded in my chest. My father was the Yunhui general, undefeated in battle. He once told my sister and me, "If you soften your temper and let people bully you, then harden your fist and strike back." William Hahn fell backward with a dull thud, dust rising. His eyes were still wide open. As more arrows rained down on the remnants who had lost their leader, the soldiers who had been forced to hold back finally surged forward. I heard frantic footsteps behind me, but I had no strength to turn around. Weakly, I lowered my head to the knife William Hahn had stabbed into my chest. Blood poured out fast. In the time it took me to glance down, my clothes were already soaked through. Someone called me Emmy. Someone called me Yuna. But I couldn't speak. I only collapsed, almost the way William Hahn had. Birds startled and flew from the trees. The beads and jewels in my hair shattered. It was the Crown Prince who lifted me up. He trembled so hard he couldn't form a full sentence. "Alexander Hahn, it hurts so much." So this was how much my mother had hurt when she died. I woke at midday. Sunlight filtered through the window, then through the pale yellow bed curtains, and finally became a soft wash of light on the brocade quilt. My throat was painfully dry. As I tried to speak, someone came close to the bed and sat beside me. "Sophie?" I squinted, trying to adjust to the brightness. "It's me. I'm here." My sister clasped my right hand in both of hers. Her palms were a little cold, and her voice especially gentle. I tried to sit up, but she wouldn't allow it. She only waved for a maid and told her to summon the imperial physician and the emperor. "The emperor?" I startled, and it tugged at my wound. Pain washed over me, and my face went pale. "Don't move. This is Purity Palace." My sister tucked the quilt around me and said, "A few days ago, the late emperor passed away. The Crown Prince has already ascended the throne." I only remember fainting. I didn't think I'd been out this long. "You've been unconscious for nearly half a month. The physicians said you were gravely injured. That day, the emperor carried you back to the palace, and you almost didn't make it. Everyone has been hoping every day that you'd wake up. Now that you have, my heart can finally rest." My sister smiled through tears as she spoke, smoothing my hair. Father was an outside official and couldn't come to the palace at will. These days, my sister had stayed in the palace to care for me. She had grown noticeably thinner. She said the rebels had been mostly cleared out. Peace had returned to the city. She also said Father had told her about the gold hairpin he had felt in my palm that day, and about how I had written the character bow on his wrist. Father had once been able to split targets from 100 paces away. With a heavy bow, he could take an enemy commander's life amid thousands. I trusted his archery, and he trusted that I wouldn't let William Hahn escape. That day, first concubine, he saved me, and then you saved me. And my sister's voice caught. If concubine he hadn't pushed me away, that knife would have gone into me. My heart sank hard, dragging pain through my chest. I tried to recall what Mother was like in everyday life. She was always slender and soft-spoken. When she occasionally appeared beside Father, she would watch in silence, follow in silence, like a shadow cast by willow branches in the inner household. The slightest disturbance could frighten her. "Since Mother saved you, she must have wanted you to live well," I said. Our hands lay over each other, warmth flowing between our palms. "Concubine. He was buried in the clan lands. In a few days, when you're stronger, we'll go pay our respects together." I nodded lightly. Tears slid down my cheek and soaked into my hair. My sister fed me a few sips of warm water, then told me about what had happened recently. My head felt heavy and foggy. If the sounds of greetings and kneeling hadn't suddenly come from outside, I might have fallen asleep again to her voice. The Crown Prince had ascended the throne. Now I should call him the Emperor. His stride was long and fast. The imperial physician came with him. My sister shifted aside, and he took the seat beside my bed. He had grown thin, too. Between his brows and eyes hung a sharp, exhausted shadow. "Yuna," I'm here." He bent over and gave me a smile, but there was too much bitterness in it to look pleasant. The physician stepped forward to take my pulse. After a long examination, even lying in bed I could see sweat sliding down his forehead. "Your Majesty, Her Majesty, she," the physician stammered. "Speak. I won't blame you," the Emperor said. He held the hand at my side. His face stayed composed, but his grip tightened and tightened. I caught sight of the wound on his wrist. It had already faded into a pale pink mark. Her Majesty was severely injured. Though she has awakened, her heart pulse is deficient, her pulse weak and thin. In the future, she will likely have to recuperate with great care and avoid exertion, and only then may she barely live out a normal lifespan. When he finished, the physician pressed his forehead to the floor tiles, as if he wanted to find a hole and bury himself. The Emperor's brows drew tighter. Seeing the physician shaking harder and harder, I tugged on the Emperor's hand. "It's fine. I'll remember what he said. I'll take good care of myself." He waved his hand and everyone withdrew. Even my sister left. The inner hall became empty and quiet. The Emperor lifted a hand and gently stroked my cheek. Then he asked, "Does it still hurt?" I smiled and shook my head. "Don't worry. As long as I'm here, I'll find the best medicine and the best physicians in the world. I won't let anything happen to you again." I smiled and asked him to lean closer. When he bent down, I lifted my head slightly and kissed the corner of his mouth. "With you here, there's nothing for me to worry about." The medicine the physicians prescribed was bitter beyond belief. When I was unconscious, I didn't notice. Now that I was awake, drinking it sip by sip often left me dazed for a long time. The Emperor kept collecting different ointments and sending them to me. He said they could fade the scar on my neck. Perhaps afraid I would brood, he added that if it didn't fade, it didn't matter, then it would match the scar on his wrist. My sister was, after all, an outside noblewoman. Now that I had awakened, she couldn't remain in the palace much longer. Once I could get out of bed and walk freely, she asked to leave the palace and return home. My sister and I left the palace together, first to pay respects at Mother's grave. Mother's tomb was not far from the late first wife's. On the stele besides Mother's name were the words, "Wife of Henry Jiang." Henry Jiang was Father's name. My sister said Father had ordered it carved. I stayed a long time before Mother's grave, dazed. I remembered how she once played Guan Shan Yue, but the memory never came into focus. Only when the sun dipped did people Father sent come to bring my sister and me back to the Jiang residence. Father still spoke little and rarely smiled like a tiger. Only now, white had appeared at the corners of the tiger's temples. The three of us sat together for a meal that was a reunion and yet not a reunion. Father said nothing much, only that I should take good care of myself in the palace. He didn't mention the Jiang family's prosperity. When he saw my sister and me off and walked back inside, he didn't look back. My sister returned to the Lu residence. I returned to the palace. With my sister gone, my days grew even duller. The Empress Dowager summoned me several times, telling me to recuperate well, and warning me to keep the palace rules. The Emperor came often, but never for long. Sometimes we couldn't even finish a game of chess before he returned to Diligent Hall. I learned new diversions like flower arranging and whisked tea. When I was truly bored, I went out to watch the young palace maids play shuttlecock. The shuttlecock flipped through the air as they laughed, and it made me laugh too. I didn't know how much time passed in the palace before news suddenly came from the court. Father had resigned his post. The 200,000 troops at the border belonged to the imperial house in the end, not the Zhang clan. The Emperor granted Father a quiet marquis title. In name, he was now part of the imperial kin. I couldn't manage court affairs. I still lived day by day, drinking bitter medicine. The Emperor said preparations for my coronation as Empress had begun. Once the year's end passed and the ceremony was held, I would become his true wife. Everything that had been lacking when I married into the Crown Prince's residence, he would make up to me, one by one. Soon, the capital saw its first snow of the year. Snowflakes poured down, covering everything. Red walls and white snow, beautiful beyond words. I was watching the snow at midday when the Emperor suddenly came. He said the plum blossoms had opened in the palace. Since the snow had stopped, he asked if I wanted to go admire them. He had once promised to take me to see the plums. Now, it would come true. I wrapped myself in a thick cloak, held a hand warmer, and walked slowly with the emperor to Balsam Garden. Dozens of palace servants moved along with us. Everywhere, people were sweeping snow. At the entrance, the emperor told everyone else to wait outside. He took only me into Balsam Garden. Red plum blossoms filled the garden. Each branch held snow. Their fragrance washed over me, rich and clean. Later, I'll have a pavilion built here, the emperor said, pointing to an empty patch not far away. He tightened my cloak around me. It will be easier for us to come admire the plums. He said that from now on, the days ahead would all be good. I wanted to break off 2 plum branches to take back. He told me to stay where I was and wait. The snow in Balsam Garden was too deep, so he went to pick them for me. I watched his back among the plum branches and snowy shadows, refined, calm, tall as jade. The man before me was the emperor who strategized, decided life and death, and held the realm in his hands. He was also the husband who walked with me through snow and broke off a branch of red plum for me. He once said that with his sincerity, he always had to weigh profit and loss first. He also said that what he gave me would be the truest thing he could offer. Such is life, I couldn't ask for more. I turned my face slightly and looked out through a sudden swirl of snowflakes. The palace walls stood towering, the pavilions and halls like carved jade. I couldn't see anything beyond the palace. There is a rabbit, Una, a pheasant caught in a net. In the end, I could never be free again, but it's all right. I chose it willingly.